Pai, tēnā koe Zav.
Kia ora te whānau, he mihi tuatahi ki a koe a pera, raua ko Noti, o rātou ko, rātou ko tohua anō kei a Raukawa, aroha mai he awanga hau. Ko wai ahau, no Ngāti Kahungunu ki Wairarapa, no Ngāti Porou ahau hoki. So yeah, I'm from Ngāti Porou and from Ngāti Kahungunu ki Wairarapa. Just saying thanks very much to Peter and his team at Raukawa for having us on this call tonight. And my recent mahi in the AI space, so me and my dad, Michael Puhara, have recently launched our company called Kahu Code, which is around trying to create a bilingual voice assistant that speaks Te Reo Māori and English and speaks Te Reo Māori well. And so we're tracking along with that. We, Dad being the developer, me doing the marketing side. But here we are not. I do play around or tutu with ChatGPT quite a lot and kind of more on the te reo side. So using it as a, I'd say like a teaching assistant for myself and my reo journey. So studying at Te Wānanga Takiura at the moment and using that alongside my studies to kind of break down grammar, understand different things here and there because I can ask it questions and, oh, can you explain this more or that more or things like that. So, and quite a, what's the word? Yeah, I don't know. That's probably my main piece is Te Reo Māori in the AI space and kind of how we can really revitalize our Indigenous language and Indigenous languages around the world using technology. That is the key thing for me. So I'll pass it on to Doug.
Kia ora koutou, ko Doug Healey tuku ingoa, ko Ngāpui, ko Ngāti Kahungunu, ko Te Aotearoa, ko Ngāti Mahuta, Ngā Iwi, ko Ngāti Maniapoto, Ngā Te Raukawa, Ngā Iwi o Tūpuna, ko Te Hake tuku marae. Doug Healey, owner of the AI Marae, been in that tutu space for a wee while now. That is an online learning academy with 25,000 students come through so far across 17 countries. That's kind of the tutu side hustle in my day-to-day work in healthcare, part of the AI and governance space in radiology and AI coding and AI data, working with aggregated data for the NDP New Zealand data platform. So sit in both spaces in the AI world. So for me, AI is an enabling capability. That's how I see it for our people. That's where I think our people deserve to be ahead of everyone else. I call it a tsunami is coming. And ideally, if we can get them up on the wave to surf that tsunami wave instead of getting wiped out or left behind like we usually are, particularly in that tech digital space. So kia ora. Yeah, thanks Peter Poe for the invitation to be here. I appreciate that. And on that note, I'll throw it across to Poe. Kia ora.
Well, e tika ka mihi, ka tautoko ngā mihi kua mihi atu kia koe pera me o hoa me Raukawa, tēnei anō te tuku mihi. Huri noa he mihi tēnei kia koutou kua karapine mai nei I wānganui a mātu mo tō tātou nei wānanga I tēnei pō. E pāna ki tēnei mea I te AI, no reira no tēnei te tuku mihi kia koutou. Ko wai tēnei, e ki he hoha mai te nota, he uri tēnei o Ngāti Whātua o Ngāpuhi, he uri tēnei o te tairawhiti ki Ngāti Porou, I tēnei wāhi noho anau ki Pariārua, o Purirua, ki raro I te kahu o Ngāti Toa, hiwe anō ki raro I te kahu, I te manaaki o Ngāti Toa Raukawa, me te Aotearoa ki konei ki Pōneke, te whanganui a tara. So kia ora everyone, originally from the north, currently reside, well, the north and the east currently reside here in Pōneke. My name is Pouaka, or Pou for short. And yeah, in terms of the mahi that I've been doing, I think, Doug, you had mentioned 25,000 students have come through your doors. I was one of them, kind of opened the eyes and now kind of took those lessons, took those learnings, and applying them not only in the Toi Māori space, but then in every other space imaginable. So I see some whānau here that, again, fortunate that I just got the call up, but again, I see a lot of individuals who could easily take this seat. So if it ends up being like that, then hey, that's the kaupapa of Wānanga, is just to have some a papa noho that we can all get together to just have a bit of a kōrero around generative AI. In terms of the mahi that I've been doing with AI, I've got an Instagram page going at the moment because I was real interested in that dichotomy between Toi Māori as we know it, in terms of the pen to paper, whether it was whakairo, te mea, and that adaptation into generative AI, and kind of what does that look like. A lot of the kōrero that I've been giving as of late is that I know that I've never been given the opportunities to jump on the chisels, but what I have learned through my time is that my chisel is my words, and I've just known that as prompt engineering there. So it's been quite an interesting kōrero across the motu, and more recently, a lot of it's been getting back into reducing administrative burden for a lot of my whānau and a lot of our iwi. So yeah, a bit of a to do here and there, but process efficiency is kind of the key part of the AI tool. And then the second part is trying to democratize creativity, because I think a lot of our whānau get put into these little clubs, and AI is really much that tool, similar to what Doug was talking about, that we can let a lot of our creative whānau have those tools to be able to express themselves. So kia ora, and I'll pass the mic to Rākau ki a koe e Karaitiana.
Kia ora koutou. Hiureo o Ngāi Tahu, Ngāti Kahungunu, Ngāti Toa. Ko Karaitiana Taiuru tuku ingoa. My background is in IT, so I started in IT with Māori digital rights back in the mid-90s. More recently, I've concentrated on Māori data sovereignty, Māori intellectual property rights, and the crossover between AI and mātauranga Māori, tikanga, intellectual property rights. I first got into AI maybe about 7-8 years ago, and I ended up, I was given a fellowship to go to Germany with the Goethe Institute, and got to meet some really cool people around the world, and realised how far behind New Zealand is with the rest of the world. And so I was really happy to see ChatGPT become a household name last year. And I guess for me, I'm in the middle. I'm not sure what my opinion is with AI and with this kōrero. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the kōrero this evening. Kia ora.
Kia ora koutou. Oh, awesome. He mihi nui ki a koutou anō, and I'm really excited to be a part of this kōrero, and by be a part of, I mean I get the easy part where I just get to kind of prompt some of the discussion points that you guys came up with as things that it might be useful to cover. And again, just to reiterate, think of this as an opportunity to listen to people who have spent a lot of time playing with AI, having a wānanga and having a kōrero about AI. Okay, it's not a here are the hard truths, hard facts, rules. Like Dr. Karaitiana just said, a lot of that is a lot of us are still figuring out where we sit on different spectrums within that AI kaupapa, because there's a lot to it. So this is just a chance to flesh out some of those whakaaro and to be a part of that convo as well. So like I said, we have a few kind of topics and starters that we thought we would go over, and so I'm just going to go through those. I'll start with the one that I thought was coolest, and because I was in control of the Google Doc, I got to choose which one to start with. So and the way I think we'll roll with the wānanga is to just, whoever wants to put their hand up and speak first, hit the plate, and then whoever wants to jump in, like he wānanga ne. So to begin with, what do you see as the most important potential that AI can unlock at an individual or whānau level? And some of you have touched on that a little bit already, but yeah, keen to just flesh out that whakaaro. Actually, maybe our tikanga is put our hands up if you know that you want to speak, so that we don't just get cross unmuting. Apply, Doug. Or we might have to do we have to unmute you, or do you unmute yourself?
Oh yeah, got
there
that.
You go. We're tech savvy, eh?
Yeah, AI is not unmuting by default. I think the biggest thing, well, for what we see in the students is one is being able to give them control of that literacy. You know, if you're working in a tech space, it's really, really hard, especially for our people to try and figure out what the words are, how to use the words, even what that word prompt, you know, we sit here talk about prompt engineering. Man, that means nothing to Nanny Polly. It means nothing to her. But we want her to be able to pick up the tool and use it in a safe space comfortably in her own time, in her own environment. And so I think what the tools, well, particularly talking about ChatGPT, it allows her to talk to AI in her own language, in her own kōrero, and get responses that she understands, not the digital technical jargon, kind of like going to the doctor, right? You leave with a prescription, you don't know what any of the medicines say, but they just say take 2 a day. So it's kind of like AI is enabling our people to read into that, look into that, and create stories and parako from where I sit that they wouldn't be able to do in any space. You know, they couldn't pop down to the local library and start doing that, let alone want to do that. And so in that space particularly, that's kind of the beginning, being able to have a chat with a bot. Now, the bot or whatever AI program you're using may not be exactly what they want, but man, it's far better than what's available out on the market. However, I think they trip up when they get, you know, our people are tutus, man. You give them any, you know, we love having to go at something. In fact, we love breaking it and then returning saying this doesn't work. So you give them a play on in the AI space, and all of a sudden they want to be living in 2035. You know, they're asking bots all the stuff that doesn't even exist yet. So that kind of brings it back to what knowledge bases are those bots retrieving that information from? And secondly, how can we train it? You know, you can't pick up any AI and say, you know, give me a Māori warrior standing on the beach, you know, and a kind of koya standing next to him wearing a kurawai. Absolutely not. That's never going to happen. One, who owns the bot? You know, there's no brownie that owns that bot. Where was it created? And where's the knowledge base coming from? So for our people in the beginning, the very early stages, really, really basic, is being able to have a conversation, a kōrero on a basic level and get the response. I think that's a key winner for us. That's kind of sparks the curiosity around that. And ChatGPT allows that to happen. That's kind of a winner. It's kind of how it launched into all this other cool stuff. But the disappointment going forward now, like I said, our people are 20 years ahead asking the bot to produce stuff that it doesn't understand yet. Yep. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Dr. Karaitiana.
Kia ora. So for me, I keep on using the analogy that we're at a crossroads with AI. We can either ignore it, which I suspect everyone here tonight is not ignoring it, or we can embrace it. And so by embracing it, we can decolonize our people, decolonize our whānau, decolonize ourselves, and empower ourselves. We've got some real opportunities here to use AI in the education system, for example. Lots of us dropped out of high school, maybe even primary school, but lots of us dropped out of school. We didn't go to universities. Like me, I went back to university as an adult. So we can use AI to actually, really empower ourselves. For those who don't learn in the normal education situation, the justice system, we know it's full of biases. So we've got a real opportunity to actually, get in there, de-bias that data and work for a legal AI system. There's just so many potential opportunities. It's unbelievable. But the biggest risk is Māori not taking lead and doing it for ourselves. I don't see anyone's helping us. So it's more about us. We need to get in there and do it for ourselves, for our whānau, do it for our mohos. And Doug he's doing that with his AI marae, and we're all here learning. So I just think there's too many potentials to go into detail, but there's a lot there. So kia ora.
Kia ora e hoa. Au.
E tautoko ana ngā kōrero Doug me Karaitiana. E maku e whakamārama nei te mutunga o ka kōrero heoi ki oku nei whakaaro ko tētahi o ngā mea rongonui o tō tātou nei. O tēnei mea I te AI ki te whai tō tātou nei reo. So translate that into our reo parawa. What I've seen as one of the biggest and most important and also potential of AI is the ability for our Māori to find their creative voice So if I was given an example, I work in examples. My mum, she's not necessarily the most artistic inclined. I give her a pen, I ask her to draw something, and it'll be completely not what I asked to draw, but hey, that's how she took the interpretation of the request that I'd asked her. Through ChatGPT, through Midjourney, through Runway, and all the other bots that are out there, what it's been awesome to do is now we can create a dialogue where a lot of the things that she has locked up in her head can actually start being communicated. So I used the term just before around democratizing creativity. I think this is one of those tools where you don't actually have to be too flash on a pencil. You don't have to be too flash on a pen. You don't have to be rich and have an iPad and an iPen because, that sets whānau back $1,000 already. So the cost of entry to creativity actually decreases as a result of using artificial intelligence. And so what's been cool is now some of the things that my mum had thought were kind of just weird thoughts and now being expressed in ways that not only are some of her mates actually really intrigued in, and we might get down to this quarter or later down the track, but now she's selling. And so from the ability to now democratize her creativity, she's been able to shift that now to be a Māori entrepreneur, which would have never been the case without the use of AI. I say that in its yes, I give it its roses, I give it its props, but there's also an element that my mum being the person that had all this creativity and now just finding a tool that allows her to express that. So if I come back to that part around what is the most important potential AI has around unlocking our people as tangata Māori, again, we have been when we think about toi Māori, it has been a chisel, it has been a pencil. If you're more reo inclined, then it's kōrero kapahaka. But this is just one of those additional avenues that we can add into the expression of ourselves as Māori. So pretty much just trying to say what Karaitiana and Doug said, but just in my own flavour. So, anō, kia ora.
Aore hoa. Tā.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Okay, ka pai. Ai, he mihi he tautoko i ngā kōrero. I think the biggest thing from my perspective for individuals and for whānau with AI is learning te reo Māori, learning our reo rangatira. As has been spoken about, or as a tool to support that, or however you want to look at it, it's free to use now. So GPT-4 is free to use. Its reo is very good. We've all been training it. Anyone who's been using it has been training it in terms of the reo that we put into it. And so, I have a 8-year-old friend using it, showed him how to use a translation bot, and took like 5 minutes, and he was using Google Translate before, and Google Translate's okay, but it doesn't have like tohu, and sometimes it's a little bit incorrect. But yeah, so ChatGPT's reo is from 3.5 to 4 has gotten incredibly a lot better. I mean, I don't know who else is also training it in the background, but it's gotten really good. But what I would say though is I did hear a comment recently that said, when people are using ChatGPT and things, they don't bother to use tohu. And I kind of thought about that, and I was like, oh, well, we really do need, I always make sure to use them. I find it quite creative and soothing to go through and make sure the tohu are in the right places and kind of slow down your thought process when typing out te reo Māori, to have that, or to do your double vowels, if that's how you type your te reo Māori. But interestingly, after that comment, when I was talking with ChatGPT today, it replied and it said I, and it didn't have a tohu on the A, and it's never done that before. And I was like, hey, where's your tohu? Like, where's the macron? And then it was like, oh, aroha mai, like, here you go. This is what I meant to say. But yeah, so interestingly, maybe there are a lot of people interacting with ChatGPT now, not using macrons, not using double vowels, and it's actually picking up on that and pushing it back out. So definitely it is a great tool for us, but we have to work with it. We have to its output is only going to be as good as our input. So as a whānau and as a collective, that's our kind of thing, to be able to work with it, and then we can, collaborate going forward. That's me.
Keen as to circle back to that point that you and Doug both kind of touched on around the outputs only matching the inputs, but just wanted to pick up on that that point around the that one objection or that I guess concern that you mentioned around the te reo Māori aspect of using ChatGPT. Any other concerns that you've heard raised about using te reo Māori as a language learning tool, and any whakaaro on those concerns? I'm just assuming that you probably have, because I've heard a few.
Yeah, I would say the biggest one is still the fear of it. For example, at Wānanga, it's don't use AI. I guess with every Wānanga is probably the same. For me, I find it really helpful, especially in terms of like if I'm doing homework, for example, not to be like, what is the answer? But I don't have a tutor sitting with me at home. I can't ring up and ask someone. There's not actually a lot of, you can't ask a very specific question like, why is this an E and not a key in this specific sentence with these specific pupu, because that's not available to you on the internet. But you can ask ChatGPT that, and it can give you a breakdown in English and or in te reo Māori if you prefer. And so from there, you can take those down as notes and you can study those yourself. And then, say if you're on the holidays or something, and then you could go back to your tutor when you're back in class and say, hey, like, was this correct? Or like, did I get this wrong? Like, and then double check it that way. But I think if we just keep being too scared to use it, as has already been said by other people, we're just going to get left behind again. And don't want that. And it's just a great tool. It's free, and you may as well use it. And especially if you understand like bits of te reo Māori, or you want to practice more in terms of vocally speaking, it's a great tool to be able to use to build sentences so that you can practice. Because repetition is key. Yeah, Po?
Oh, just to tautoko your kōrero, and coming from te reo being my first language, and so the opportunities that I've been afforded have been amazing. And one of those opportunities is that everyone now wants you to be your kaiako teacher net. Mehe mea ki te mahi, mehe mea ki te kura. In any spaces, individuals, because of the rapid adoption of te reo Māori across Aotearoa, there's been a lot of demand for our language, which has been amazing. And I think the beauty of that, it starts to put a bit of a strain on a lot of those education systems or those foundations that we've become so accustomed to. So another example, we tried chucking my tama into kohanga because we just thought, again, the kohanga, the kura system will be there to take our child for whatever reason. That was my thought process. Come around, he turns 3 and realised that there's actually a 12-month waiting list to get into a kohanga. And I was like, hika, that's a bit of a mish. Went to a few other whānau and realised that, again, that was the norm. 6 to 12 months to get into a kohanga, unless you had whānau members. Then again, the processes to get your tamariki through that the kohanga system are a little different. In that example, what I've come to appreciate is now we can actually leverage our knowledge, we can leverage our capability and our capacity to actually serve more of our whānau. And no doubt there are a few people in this kōrero or this wānanga that probably get fielded, hey, how would I say this? How do I do this? Where there are actually technology-based enablement tools that can help with that. And what that does for me in particular is it allows me to get back a little bit of my time, which allows me to actually get into other wānanga that allows me to excel my reo. So in addition to what's been said around the use of reo, I'm kind of on the fence with it as well. He taonga tuku iho, it's something that, again, our ancestors have fought for. And I've seen some of the comments around now, we're just freely giving it to the spot. Okay, te tahi kōrero ki tērā taha. On this side, now I've seen whānau members who have been actively using it and refining that reo. So anō ki te whai a te reo. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting as we kind of progress over the next couple of years. I've seen articles where it says that it's probably going to be the most proficient orator of te reo Māori by the end of this year. Who knows? But I think the beauty of that is now, again, those barriers to entry into te ao Māori for our language start to kind of diminish, which now relates to a bit of a behaviour thing of, cool, you've got enough situations where you can enter te reo Māori if that's really what you want to do. And now there's all these avenues. So excuses the opportunity to have excuses starts to materialize a little bit. So, just another whakaaro in terms of providing other avenues that allow resources for our whānau to engage with.
Kia ora. Doug, have you unmuted because you want to jump in on that whakaaro?
Oh, just quickly, since that update with ChatGPT, that memory is updated per conversation, and hence why it can drop the hat, drop the macron, and place it and go back and forth, because that memory is updated per conversation, not per day. So it's getting a thrashing at the moment. However, in another hui in overseas that I had, there are people that build bots and build chats to unstitch all of that. So we're kind of on the right track. We'll train it and work hard to do that, but there are groups out there deliberately to unstitch Indigenous work being done. So so the only way we can counteract that is more people doing the mahi and training the bots. Yeah, kia ora.
Kia ora. What, can you just expand on that? What do you mean by working to unstitch that work by Indigenous peoples?
Oh, creating kupu that isn't relevant, that isn't correct, that isn't, yeah. And so you can create documents and upload those into ChatGPT, not even into GPTs, just into the open market, and that'll update its memory. Hence why it can drop the hat now and again. Hence why it's almost there. It's like 97% there. It's really good to see. However, as you know, 12 months ago, it was like 70%. So the more we do that, the better it'll become. Yeah.
Kia ora. Any other whakaaro from our kai kōrero around the te reo Māori aspect? Sorry, I should have actually said at the beginning, and sorry, Zava, see you've got 3 hands up, man. It's impressive. But we've got a Q&A section where if we're listening and we have a pātai, or we want to throw something into the wānanga, then put that in our Q&A section, and we'll get to as many of those as we can throughout the wānanga as well. Dr. Karaitiana.
Yeah, I just want to add to the real conversation. I think as much as we want it or not, AI will become proficient in te reo Māori. And I do know there's 2 different schools here. There's one school who don't want it to be used in AI, and there's another school that does. So my generation, a couple of us on a couple of the kai kōrero here, we're old enough to remember when te reo Māori wasn't taught at school, when it wasn't socially acceptable, when our grandparents taught us not to speak in public. But then since then, some of our whānau, lobbied for te reo Māori to be the first, an official language in New Zealand. We've got research around the world says that a language to survive needs to be normalized. And so to be normalized, it needs 3 generations of native speakers, plus the language needs to be everywhere where the children and the future generations of children are going to be. So I think, as personally, I might get hammered for this, but I think AI is good for te reo Māori because it's going to normalize it. But I also think that we need to be careful what we give to AI. We shouldn't be giving the AI any of our pūrākau. We shouldn't be giving it anything that will help the AI be better than us. And then I think as individuals, as whānau, this is our time to go back to the marae, go back to where we come from, if that's possible for people, and then to actually learn how to stand on the marae, learn to whai kōrero, do all those things which an AI will never be able to do. But at the same time, you can empower yourself and your whānau by going back. So kia ora.
Kia ora. And that's a really good strand, I think, to follow back to the kōrero that we had, or that came up earlier around the output only being as good as the input, right? So, Doug, you touched on really briefly why isn't it drawing a picture of a warrior over here next to a kuia? Can you expand on that kōrero a little bit more for us, please?
Sure. Well, there's a couple of large databases. Obviously, everyone knows Berkeley is one, and definitely Google was the other, and all the other universities that are supplying that information. And so basically, in the early days, like, as we do know, when the bots first started coming out, version 1, 2, 3, and 4, the whakapapa of those bots were only drawing information and knowledge from limited stock. So, i.e., it would then take 5 million images that's available online and try and draw what it thought would be a representation of an Indigenous person, i.e., a Māori warrior. Hence why those images were collapsing. But in the bots world and in that training model and that learning model, like I say when I teach, half the room celebrated because it converted text into imagery, and the other half of the room walked out, stormed out, and said fail. And so as those would see over time, those iterations every 3 to 12 weeks or whatever, you can see it slowly developing according to the prompt. Now, in the early stages, if this is a little bit too far, just tell me to shut up. But in the early stages, prompting was very, very specific. And when I mean specific, I mean you would ask exactly what you want. And then you had to add lenses, and then you had to add commas, slashes. It wasn't a language, it wasn't the true coding language, but it still had to have a specific language. Since since chatbots came along, you don't need that prompting language. You can just talk to it like you would normally have a conversation. So therefore, it's still got to draw from that 5 million images and whatever it's learnt over time, or what people have given it over time. Now, if you ask me how many people in New Zealand are uploading images to teach AI what that looks like, it'd be a handful, because they're all on the receiving end. They want. But and I don't want to go into it because this is Karaitiana's field, but then you've got all the sovereignty around what do we give it? What do we teach it? How does it learn? Should we give it? Should we start presenting it, moku kāwai, mataroa, tohus, and so forth to get it right? Where do we want to go? And if we say no, well, and we want to protest about it, well, you better go down to New Zealand souvenir shop because it's all made in China. It's kind of like whole water Māori providers. Where do they buy all their kaku? China. Sublimation gear, all China. It all gets made everywhere else. We're already giving it away, technically. So how far do we want to teach it? So I'm kind of like, now I'm sitting on the fence about what Karaitiana is saying. What do we want to give and what do we want to hold on to? So that's where, and when I have that discussion in class, I say it's purely up to the individual. It's your bot, you're training it. What you put in is what you're going to get out, and you put rubbish in, you're going to get rubbish out. So, but however, then do you share it on the internet? You have the option to do that. You can either just have it deliberately set up for yourself, or on the web, or share links with everyone else. So it becomes, it becomes a personal choice for the individual working in that space. Yeah.
Kia ora. Pau, any whakaaro on that around the I think as someone who has been, doing your own controlled kind of training using your toi Māori, all whakaaro.
Oh, so to give some more context to what Peter was talking about, and I think it is one of the Q&As, so as Doug was talking, I was like, I wonder what type of pātai are coming in. So I might not necessarily answer the pātai that sorry, I've got a new post here. Hika. Amo could have had asked, but it's kind of on the similar routes where initially with the Doug's class, again, amazing class. I don't get any referral bonuses or anything to send you his class, but amazing class. Again, understand the kind of concepts of toi Māori in the AI space. What that led to was I actually didn't know a lot. And so that shifted me into a space of wanting to do my own rangahau, to understand, do a bit of research, to kind of really understand what does it actually mean when we're talking about this concept of large language models or LLMs. And so, yeah, some of the elements that started coming up was IP concerns. What you feed it is what you get out, but then also what you feed it and everyone else feeds it is potentially what you get in or get you out as an output. So one of the bigger corridors or one of the bigger topics that started coming out was around creating your own bot or customized bots. And so that's where I've kind of leaned towards in terms of in the absence of pure autonomy, control, sovereignty over my own data, let me get to the best point possible, which is kind of a hybrid between, I guess, a large bot that everyone else has access to and something that is completely privatized. If I know if you've got a bit of puta and want to bankroll me so I can create our own Māori LLM, no mate. But in the absence of that much capital, yeah, the in-between was a customized bot similar to what Sis has been doing in terms of a Māori chatbot. And so the beauty of that is now I can start teaching it what I want, but then also having my own processes, my own foundations in place to ensure that I'm not over teaching, because it can get to that point where it's enticing to now start chucking your whakapapa on there, because it's better to be put in a large data center than in my own head. But then I had that own wānanga with myself and going like, actually, I don't want this information being out there just willy-nilly. So we keep that in the spaces that we've kept it in. So I think a lot of this boils back down to is user behavior with our tools. Because we can kind of get caught in this blame game where it's easier to blame the tool as opposed to the people that are using it. And so going back to kind of those behaviors that Doug was talking about, kei a koe, you've been given these tools, however you use them, it's really up to you. But understanding the positives, the potential risks that come with that, that's really on the person to be able to do their own rangaho as opposed to just jumping straight into it because it's cool. So yeah, I don't know if that actually answered your partai, Chief, but that's what we've done is in the absence of this utopia or this kind of bot that we know that is purely Māori and has a ngākau Māori, whakaaro Māori, well, let me create that on the kind of side while things are still sorting itself out until a point where I'm comfortable to kind of chuck it back into the bigger pool. And that's the thing that I continue to reflect on is when we think about, and someone will probably be able to correct me on here, ChatGPT got released, December 2022, I think. That's not a lot of time. And so when we start kind of blaming ChatGPT for everything and anything, we realize that I've got a 4-year-old, and if I was expecting him to behave in a way that is being an adult, that's just on me. So that's when perspective and foresight can come into kind of framing up where we currently are. It's amazing, but then also in a space of amazing, not kind of losing track on what is our whāinga matua, what is our end goal with the likes of artificial intelligence. And for me, as similar to what Karaitiana has been talking about, and again, correct me if I'm mincing your words, Chief, but AI is good for Māori. And so when I think about normalizing te reo Māori, this is one of those ways that kia ora ai te reo Māori ki Aotearoa a ki te ao hurihuri. So that's my thoughts around it, Chief.
Kia ora. Yeah, and I just wanted to, I guess, reiterate that kōrero of yours as well, Dr. Karaitiana, around, like AI is going to, well, it is happening. It's going to continue to happening. It's going to continue to proliferate, I guess, or to expand its reach, right? And I think the most important thing from my perspective is how do we make informed decisions as to how we're contributing to its growth, right? And I know we don't have this in our set of kōrero topics, but there's a few partai in the Q&A around kind of focused on that side of it, or I think that might be a way to answer some of those questions anyway. Like, do any of you have any specific things that you're thinking about when you're considering what to contribute into that knowledge base, and when you're making those decisions? Any thoughts on that? That might help. I think to take this kōrero and make it practical and applicable for our whānau listening. How might we make our own decisions about what we're happy to share, what we're happy not, what we don't want to share? Kia ora, ihoa.
Kia ora. I love simple tips. So a really simple one, I'll just never share like people's names and things. Like if there's a name in the sentence, like if I'm trying to translate something into te reo Māori or vice versa, I'll just switch the name out for something generic. What else is another thing? I haven't, I've only kind of used it for general knowledge purposes. I don't know enough pūrākau myself. I really don't know. I couldn't tell you like a full pūrākau off the top of my head. So I don't know enough of that kind of in-depth knowledge to be able to feed into the bot anyways. obviously, on one hand, I would say don't feed that stuff. But on the other hand, in the future, if we don't have some sort of repository for these pūrākau, well, they're just going to go with the people who hold them. And that upsets me to talk about because I don't even know any of my pūrākau because I don't have access to the people. They're already gone. So, you know, for me, and maybe for our generation, I think that if there's a possible way to create a safe space in Ahuru Mōwai, a Māori LLM, something that we can bring that stuff into, something that we can hold on to that stuff so that it doesn't disappear, because that is what has happened with our language. And that's what's happened with a lot of pūrākau. They've gone with the people who knew them and didn't want to part with them because they didn't feel safe to. And, you know, they probably didn't even feel safe telling their own mokopuna. It's not that they, you know, back in the day, they probably didn't trust their mokopuna with it. So, you know, it's a similar concept of that trust and being able to trust something or someone with something that's very dear to you. So you kind of have to build that up over time. So in the future, in the far, far future, I would think that something like that could be possible, but it's obviously quite controversial as well. So I just put that out there.
Oh, kia ora for putting that out there. E hoa? Any other whakaaro on that? Might, ai, kia ora, e hoa. Tu Karaitiana.
Oh, kia ora. Yeah, I just want to just recognise that Te Taka made a really good question in the Q&A. So it's on topic, but I mean, basically whatever we're putting in the AI, it's true, the big tech companies are using it and they're making money from it. They're capitalising on our mātauranga Māori. So whatever we put into AI, before we do it, we should make sure that we actually own it, that it's not owned or our whānau or our iwi aren't kaitiaki off that mātauranga. Because once we put it in the AI, you know, Google, Microsoft, whoever it is, will end up owning that mātauranga Māori. And so some of the ways around this is we need to be looking at legislation in New Zealand. We need to look at the Y262 claim. The descendants or the claimants are still working with government for some, you know, some solutions. And I think as anyone who's interested in AI should be supporting the Y262 claimants' descendants in this. We also need to be working and putting pressure on the government to regulate the copyright, or regulate copyright. And the Copyright Act is being reviewed. I'm not sure if it's public submissions are open yet, but they will be. So as Māori, we need to be making submissions on the Copyright Act. People like myself, I'm lobbying in the trademark space as one of the Māori advisors for trademarks. I'm pushing for legislation change there. I think we just collectively we need to start pushing for changes. And I think ideally we would have our own Māori LLM, which is owned, whether it's by iwi or Māori organisations or who owned by Māori. And so we can fully recognise Māori data sovereignty and protect our own mātauranga Māori. So yeah, again, just I would reiterate, anything you put into AI, you're going to lose all control of it once it's put in there. So just be careful what you add.
Kia ora. There's another partai in the Q&A which in my head when I read it, it had quite a strong link to the kōrero we were having. I can't quite find that link anymore, but so I'm just going to read the partai and we'll see what happens. But it was for someone who's reconnecting or rediscovering their Māori roots, how might AI guide them in the right direction back to their marae in an ideal world? So I guess that's a cool partai around that coming together of kind of the two parts that we've been talking about, which is the that stuff that we want to stay true and always be true about our connection to Te Ao Māori, and this rapidly advancing thing that we, like you said, Poe, it's only a couple of years old. We don't understand it fully yet, and it has the capability to disconnect us or connect us stronger. So yeah, any whakaaro on that? How might we make sure that it guides us back to our people, back to our roots, back to our marae potentially? Oh, you look like you're saying something
Yeah, I
very
think
deep
Poe,
and profound
you're
on
on
mute.
mute.
Oh no, I was about to, again, holding space, working on brevity whānau. But tuatahi anō he mihi tēnei mo te pātai. I think it's an awesome pātai because I think that's a big factor that I talk about, especially when giving some of these kōrero around the use of technology just in general as a driving factor to go home, for the ultimate goal of using technology to stay home. So that might be later down the track and we can have another kōrero around that, kind of that end-to-end process of reintegration back into your marae. But I'm kind of on that later stage of how can I leverage AI so I can stay home as opposed to reconnecting to it near. And now creating our own ahika and everything else. But that's for another kōrero whānau. So again, my mum's been my guinea pig in all of this mahi. I did ask her for her permission as I tell some of her pūrākau and some of her stories. But she, to give a bit of context, she was a whāngai child. So she was at birth given to one of my uncle and aunties. And so in that whole progression of trying to understand herself as Māori, she's never really had that. It's not until she had an annoying son that came to a point in age where now they could actually have some mature conversations as opposed to me just being an egg, that now we can use AI as an opportunity for her just to reintegrate herself with whakaaro Māori. And so when we start talking about Māori patterns and whether it's mangopare, koru, everything else in between, what it's actually started, and again, I'm using a wakahaurua term here, so apologies for our whānau that might have heard, this might have been your 50th time you've heard wakahaurua today, by creating a bit of a papanoho between her and Te Ao Māori. And so the beauty of AI that we've been able to reintegrate her is now we're creating a bit of a dialogue for her to really understand what it means to be Māori. Because I'll be the first to say, as soon as she got the bug, she wanted to start producing Māori stuff and selling it. I was like, epe, learn your culture before you try to sell it, ne? Learn your culture before you try to commercialize it. So the beauty of that is now we can start having kōrero about our reconnection to her marae. And so fast forward to literally, I think Monday, we've actually just got some court documentations finding out that now we know who her actual mother was. There's a bit of land in her name. And I was like, cool. Before we can even put your name under that land, let's go back to our marae. And so in December, the 5th of December, actually going back to Hinerupe marae with her to reintegrate her back into her whānau. So long story short, where a lot of dialogue back in the past, and again, I'm just a hoha son, like probably you have a whole bunch of hoha sons or children, the conversations that we usually had were very much, yep, mahi's good, yep, life's good, yep, your grandson's good. Where now she's like, hey, can you help me with some of this toi Māori? That's been a pathway into her learning about more Māori, which has lent into a pathway to go back to her marae. So that in the span of 8 to 9 months has been pretty meke. I don't even know if I've actually answered the pātai around rediscovering their Māori roots, how might AI... So yeah, for my mum in that particular instance, her being able to get some of her Māori thoughts out in terms of creating art, it's allowed her to actually have another doorway or another pathway into Te Ao Māori. And the beauty of that papanoho is now she's actually creating more space for her whānau to create more dialogue in terms of what does it mean to be Māori for my mum. So he whakaaro anake, I don't know if that actually answered the pātai.
Kia ora. No, beautiful, bro. And I think there's probably also another angle to that pātai which you had touched on earlier as well, and a couple of you did too, which is around that being able to stay at home, that being able to reduce that that administrative burden, right? So that mahi that we just have to do, and as someone who spends a whole bunch of time filling out funding applications for different kaupapa, things like that, right, where we can use AI to complete those tasks that, I don't know how many different enough funding applications I've filled out that it's that it takes a whole nother day to do one, but it's a lot. And now I can use ChatGPT to do that stuff, and I find that a lot of that admin stuff is the stuff that takes the time that I might have spent otherwise, increasing my real ability, actually going and doing, making it to the next working bee out at Whakarongotai or wherever, but I'm at home filling out another funding application, so using it smart to get through some of those things that other people are using it for. And and I think to your kōrero before as well, Doug, around the, you know, getting our people up onto that wave, because everybody else is going to be using it, and some of the rangatahi that I work with, you know, where AI isn't allowed to be used at college, and they're thinking about going into the job market next year, and they're going to be going out there competing with people using AI, right? And they haven't learned how to use it yet. So yeah, I think there's an important part about just getting stuff done quicker and smarter so that we can spend our time on the stuff that is more to do with our heart, that comes from better use of AI as well. Yeah. Doug, did you have your hand up then? Take it down, or did...
Oh yeah, I did, but Karaitiana, you had your hand up first.
Oh, yes, I did. Then I put it down, but I was going to say that yeah, the key words in Simon's question, which I can't see right now, but he said in the ideal world. So for me, in the ideal world, each marae and each iwi would have their own sovereign servers running their own sovereign LLMs, which would have all the whakapapa, would have all the pūraka, all the knowledge. And so ideally, you'd be able to say, my name is Simon, I think these are my parents, I think these are my grandparents. And then the AI would, yeah, let you know who you are, and you know if you whakapapa to that marae and help you back. But that's in the ideal world. But I think we're a long, long way away from there. So that was just my couple of cents worth. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Yeah, tautoko. Actually, I was thinking of not the ideal world. Actually, there are some risks around that in relation to, you know, connecting. If anyone's using AI to connect back to their marae, I guess you asked the question, why are they doing that? So obviously, they must be disconnected. I.e., they're not sitting in these spaces. Because people that sit in these spaces know that we wouldn't use AI to connect back to our marae, and it's kind of what Karaitiana was touching on. It's all about whānau, whakawhanaungatanga. You know, it's having those conversations. It's knowing your whakapapa. You wouldn't even do it in that space if anything. And if they didn't know, they'd be using family history. They'd be using Māori maps. They'll be using Google. They'll be using everything else. But you know, and some may even not know to use AI to do that, or may not know its capabilities. So there's some risk there, you know, in relation to that. So how would AI present that to them? Would it start leading them down that track? It all goes back to that, and you touched on it, Karaitiana, about how having a Māori LLM, deliberate, perfect, but let's say in 10 years' time we're not here, and the millennials are coming through. They know it all. They're on their devices, and they're going to start smashing AI to get, hey, you know, we're not here. I don't know. But you know what I'm saying? There's the risk. And not just the millennials, the next ones and the next ones. 2035, 2045. If these conversations don't continue in the space, then everyone, which I'd suspect, would be using AI. You know, this is like when the banks introduced, I know I'm off subject, but just quickly, when the banks introduced FPOS cards, and everyone says, we're going to put our money in this little plastic card and everyone's going to be using it. And back in the 80s, if you're old enough to be in here and know that, there was a big dispute. And then the 90s, it finally come out and everyone was like, no way. Now, we don't even use cards. We got PayWave on our phones. It's normalized. So what is AI normalized, getting back to the marae, going to look like? So a little bit of risk, you know, and that's where sharing those parako and sharing those stories, because that's what we're all about. All our people are about stories, kapahaka, waiata, and we feel. You can write it in documents, but if we go somewhere, we say these things. Oh, felt stink. I'm going to gap it. That's how we react, you know. But AI can't say, oh, this feels stink. This feels wrong. So it's only going to produce what it thinks. Hence why I think there'd be a little bit of a risk there utilizing AI to go home. Yeah, I don't know how to protect that, but I don't think all I do in class is talk about AI does the heavy lifting. It can, and it can make mistakes. Just be aware of that. I think having that whakaaro and debunking the narrative that it's going to be bad and teaching it in a positive space will help address that as time permits. Yeah. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Aroha mai. I'll just briefly touch on that kōrero, Doug. Yeah, that AI can't be like, oh, that was stink, I'm gonna gap it just yet, but who knows in the future. But just circling back to that question, that pātai, so for someone who's reconnecting or rediscovering their Māori roots, how might AI guide them back? So I think from my perspective, I think that question is coming from an angle of one, disconnection, which I understand fully, and two, looking to AI as a solution for everything. Like when I read that question, I'm like, oh yes, there's some sort of technology solution that could sit in there. It might not necessarily be AI, but maybe like an ancestry.com, but for marae. Like, hey, these are my whānau, like what Karaitiana was saying, and how can I reconnect? So from my side, I only found our marae late last year, through going through so many different Facebook like groups, this, that, the other, and digging, and then finally finding a cousin. And then, for example, like Peta, found out that one of my cousins also works with Peta, Naughty, who's also on the call, who found out via us being at the awards dinner, and then my dad being called up on stage, and then being like, oh yeah, we're related. So, I think it's really hard, like, unless you have the time to be like, I'm going to go through all these Facebooks, I'm going to ask the really hard and awkward questions of like, hey, this is the only tiny piece of information I know, do you know anything? And then like awkwardly trying to travel down there by yourself, which I drove all the way to Wairarapa by myself and met a bunch of people I'd never met before. So I think it might not necessarily be AI, but I think some sort of not even a technology solution, just a solution that connects information about marae to people who might think that they are from there, or they're literally just trying to discover where they're from and they just want to go see the marae because they've never seen it before. So I know there's a lot of us out there, and I think there's a lot of people who are blessed to have lived on marae, been brought up on marae, but then there's so many of us who don't even know what our marae is. Like, for example, my marae in Ngāti Porou, I have like a lead of maybe one, it might be, but not 100% sure, no idea who to contact. So, some sort of thing that could connect you. And even if it's not to connect to the people, just to connect to the whenua, like back there. Like I guess a lot of people, especially like with the Facebook scenarios and things, they all have their own lives. They all have like their own things going on. They might not necessarily have time to host you, or like they don't want to meet up with you. They don't know you. They've never met you before, even though you're like whakapapa back to them, or maybe you're like their cousin. They still don't know you. So a way that could even just connect you back to your whenua, even if it's not the people, like just so that you can go and make that connection. Some sort of technology solution, some sort of networking, or something where you don't have to ask 1,000 people before you get an answer, or give up before you get that answer. So, yeah.
Kia ora. Any other whakaaro on that pātai in particular? Otherwise, I'll jump to another one. Ka pai. And I know we've kind of touched on it a little bit briefly, but just feels like it would be a damn shame to not dive a bit deeper into AI and data sovereignty, especially when we have Dr. Karaitiana on the call. So the pātai from Melissa was just whakaaro around AI and data sovereignty. Which is a big pātai. But he wānanga tēnei.
So I guess at this stage, we don't have Māori data sovereignty with AI. We basically, most of the AI is owned by conglomerates, by big companies. And by default, if it's an American company, the US government can access all of their data. So again, we need to be looking at our own LLMs, our own AI infrastructure in New Zealand. Minister Collins, our Minister of Technology, is quite keen on a New Zealand AI or New Zealand sovereignty. So I think we've got people who are interested. It might be more about the infrastructure and the costs to get New Zealand AI. I'm not sure, but most definitely Māori data sovereignty does not exist with the current AI that we have today. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Doug.
Yeah, I'll just add to that, just to tautoko Karaitiana, there are 3 servers being set up for that with AWS. And I think Dan Walker's on here. He knows a little bit about that. You know, one in Wally, one in North Shore. But yeah, even still, the giants, Amazon, are all giants of global companies, you know. And people say, oh, we're fine. It's on our shore now. It's being built. Hello. Just because there's a building here doesn't mean it's not being shared. So, and you know, at the same time, DIA have built their trust framework around that, around Titiriti and AI in the cloud and all that sort of stuff. But once again, it's still not locked in. You know, no one has. I don't think anyone has pioneered it or pushing it harder than New Zealand Aotearoas. You know. There are Indigenous cultures around the world doing what they're doing, but I think the real drive is little old New Zealand really pushing hard on it, you know, which is good because it's almost best practice for Indigenous. Actually, Indigenous cultures are looking at what we're doing in that space to protect our data, and I think it would then become the gold standard once we lock it down. It just needs more heads around the room, and absolutely, iwi or some org needs to take ownership of that. I don't know, we go to all the iwi and they shell out 10K each and then we buy it ourselves. We own it, have total ownership. But, you know, wherever that's gone, I don't know. But, you know, at least the kōrero has started on that, which is most important. Yeah, absolutely. You know what? The data's already there. You just go to Timu. All the Māoris are on Timu. You know, everyone has Facebook. All our data's already out there. We've been doing it for ages. All of a sudden, someone put Māori in front of it, and now it's called Māori data, and now we're all jumping up and down. Oh, no, where is it? But it's always been there. We just, build it ourselves, for ourselves. Protect our taonga, absolutely.
Kia ora. Dr. Karaitiana, I might invite you to do you want to expand on that a little bit around the, you know, because I think there's a misconception, like pretty much what you're saying, right, Doug? There's a misconception that all of a sudden our data is now at risk. Dr. Karaitiana, tell us a little bit about the way our data has already been at risk and is not necessarily something that we're all aware of.
Sure. Yep. So every time we use, like social media, if you use Tumu or Temu, that data goes to China. All the social media, the data goes to America. When we put stuff in the cloud, it goes to usually like Singapore, America, maybe depending on who you're with, might be in India or elsewhere around the world. So by default, our data comes under the laws of other countries, not just New Zealand. So I mean, our data's everywhere, but there's a thing called data repatriation, which is a corporate term for bringing data back onshore. And as Doug pointed out, we've got large conglomerates that are bringing data back, that are building data servers in New Zealand, and so that's called data residency. Now, people are in two minds about it, but in my opinion, data residency is better than not having data residency. So data residency, our data is in New Zealand. At least we can have some sort of conversations with the landowners. It might be the iwi, for example. Just today, I heard that Waikato Tainui are the landlords of Waikato University, where there's a large, large data server warehouse. And so, I mean, immediately, that gives us a little bit more flexibility and a little bit more sovereignty of our data. But when it's not in New Zealand, we have to contend with foreign governments, and foreign governments don't really care about little old New Zealand. And and that was most obvious in two major cases that occurred in the national media. The first was the Tuahoi raids. The New Zealand government basically gave the American government anything they wanted. Māori, there was some of those accused Māori had their computers, their cell phones taken, data was taken, copied by the American government. There was no, we're too small to care about. And then more recently, the Kim.com saga. I don't know the ins and outs, but I mean, if that data was only in New Zealand, that would have probably been a open and closed case. But because it used American servers, it become very messy and international. So I hope that kind of answers the question a bit.
Kia ora. Any other whakaaro on that topic? Ka pai. I just wanted to circle back to another couple of to a point that a couple of you made around like one of the big bits of potential that AI has for us is the way that it can the way that we can make it speak to us in a way we understand, right? And I was just thinking about today, so I got my my 6-year-old boy Kahu sitting over there, and I've been working on this website, and I spent probably about 20 minutes today getting ChatGPT to write this job up for my mate who's relearning how to develop, how to code for this website. And so I needed this job to be written in a way that he would understand, right? So I knew what I needed it to do, and so I could ask ChatGPT to write me this really well written, comprehensive job description for my bro, in language and terms that he was going to understand. And that was a 20-minute job. And 20 minutes, probably exaggerating, probably took me like 10 minutes. That would have taken me otherwise probably half a day to flesh out and write, right? And that meant that I could then this afternoon take my little bro over there down to Māori land out here in the centre of the universe in Otaki, and we could hang out, and I didn't have to rush because I had that job that I needed to get done in the afternoon done already. So I think if we go back to some of that earlier kōrero around how we can use AI to reconnect, how we can use AI to do the things that we actually want to do, right? Like we just have to practice doing it, and we have to experiment and explore ways to do it. There's the worries and the concerns that we have around the Te Ao Māori elements of it and the mātauranga elements of it, and to someone else's point, the mātauranga that should stay in Wānanga and the mātauranga that is okay being out of Wānanga. There's all of that stuff, and then there's the just like getting in there and using it to do some day-to-day mundane-ish kind of things that free up our time to do the beautiful kind of things. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that if we don't, we're going to be the ones who don't, and everyone else will, because everybody else already is. And the ability to make it talk in a way that we understand or anybody understand is kind of amazing, right? To be able to say, hey, my mate understands this and this and this. Here's this thing. Explain it to him in a way that he understands. Is pretty powerful and pretty impressive. Any whakaaro on that? Random addition from the guy who's not really meant to be talking? Oh, kia ora.
Can I turn off on?
Aroha mai. Yeah, any whakaaro on that, on just the kind of examples or thoughts you've had on how you've been able to use it to free up your time, Zav?
Just quickly, I've just was writing some down, as you said them. So things I've used it for: writing proposals, funding proposals, nominations for some recent awards where they won ×2, and references as well. So references also on behalf of other people, where I've asked someone for a reference, but they don't actually have the time to write a reference, but they know me, and they'll back it up with their phone number and everything, and so that was a really interesting one where I was like, oh, write me some references, here's my CV, write them as 2 different people. I started writing them and I was like, no. And I was like, okay, person 1, this is who they are, wahine, they work in this industry, I've known them for this long, this is our relationship. go. And then this is the second one. This is the profile of the person, tāne. This is how I know them. This is our relationship, more of this style, go. And feedback on one of the references was, this is the best reference I've ever written. Like, so, yeah, I mean, but it's all about collaboration, right? You can't just, yeah. And I think it comes back to what keeps being said is it's only as good as the input is what you're going to get out of it. And yeah, you can get some pretty powerful stuff if you put in a bit of effort towards it. Yeah. Because I mean, those things, yeah, instead of taking like 3 hours, 4 hours, it'll still take me like 2 hours, but to like work with it. But yeah, definitely less and quality stuff.
Kia ora. Dr. Karaitiana.
Kia ora. I was going to say, you have to be careful if you're using AI for anything. It's always important to double check it with a human resource or with something else. And as Doug mentioned before, and as Tui put in the comments, there are groups, and I know of one group in New Zealand who are purposely trying to trick AI into manipulating anything to do with Māori. So it's just, I just urge some real caution. And so just on that, just on Tui's comments too, just about the scams, there are bad actors using ChatGPT to start up phishing emails, scams. They'll use Te Reo Māori, they'll use your social media profile, figure out who your parents are, who your mates are. And so, yeah, we just have to be really careful. And so my advice would be, double check anything AI tells you. And if you get a strange email from your whānau or someone you know saying, "Oh, bro, I'm just, I'm in Otaki, can you flip me, $20 so I can jump on the bus or whatever?" Just pick up, pick up the phone and ring them, or text them, and maybe just have some special code words, or ask them about their pipiha, their whakapapa, something which AI won't know. Then just double check with them to make sure it is them or it isn't them. But again, just really just check what AI is telling you. As a supervisor in academia, one of my students that I was supervising wrote large chunks of their thesis, their master's thesis, using AI, and it was really obvious. So it was just, it was good, but it wasn't their writing. So I just urge lots of caution using it. So, kia ora.
Or just following on that, any other on that other side of kind of caution, I guess, anything else that we know we need to be looking out for in terms of scams coming our way that can be driven increasingly by AI?
Well, one thing that isn't happening is there's not a lot of conversation around the cybersecurity component of AI. There's a lot of, it's all, everyone's at the receiving end, but, it goes back to the accounts, hacked, things like that, and information. But, in the IT world, the knowledge and cyber go hand in hand, and that's one thing that AI really, really doesn't have a good backdoor for cybersecurity, the protection of data, information, hence why there's plagiarism in there, and it's heavily loaded. And if there was a true cyber secure element in the back end, it wouldn't allow phishing, it wouldn't allow plagiarism, it wouldn't allow all of that. But it seems like there's an open door. So if there's an open door for anyone that wants to work in that betrayal scenario space, AI definitely allows that to happen. And there's not a lot of conversations about that. You start, now everyone's starting to think, oh, hang on, no, there isn't. So, and that, because everything that we look at, or even I look at, is what's good, and then what are the risks? Let's see if we can find out what those risks are. So, definitely those key questions, Karaitiana, that AI wouldn't know, that just AI wouldn't know. But it'll get cleverer and cleverer. The human needs to be cleverer and cleverer as well. The human needs to be the decider, You some of you mightn't like this, but I help build bots for NCQA on the unit standards for marking students' work. But only the teacher who's working in that subject matter would know whether it's true or false, right? So, but I tell you what, the AI opens up another 8 hours worth of space for them over the week. However, you would be silly to utilize true AI to say that's a true marking for a student, but it's definitely going to do all the heavy lifting. But it takes a long time to build those bots. You know, if you're doing a subject, then you've got to have all levels, you've got to have all the exemplars, you've got to have all the NCQA standards, it's a shitload of work. Oh, sorry, I don't want mine. It's a lot. $10 in the cookie jar. It's a lot of work to build. So when people say, "Oh, it's AI," hey, Taiho, it's a lot of work. You've got to have the human knowledge to start building, to know what you're looking at when you've got the product, right? Zav, you can't just build a te reo bot and say it's done unless you know the knowledge, unless you've got to decipher and go through everything. So once you can do that and identify that, man, just like your son, freeing up time to go and do other mahi and you know, have quality family time. That's where we should be looking. That's where we should be enhancing. That's where we should be whakamana AI so that we get more family time. It's kind of like, you know, we all work hard so the kids have a better life. Man, they got it too good now. I think we all work too hard. They're all on their tablets. But, you know, besides that, yeah, really find the sweet spots, the gems, and focus on that. But just protect that kaupapa, yeah. Kapa.
Kia ora. Yeah, and just I guess to kind of drive that point home, that point around having key phrases or key questions is just going to get more and more important. Like, it's so easy now for a scammer to go, like, if you have anything online, I'm not going to break down the steps on how to do it, obviously I thought about it, but you know, if you have anything online, it's super easy for someone to impersonate you using AI now, right? Like, this is how this person talks. Write a message to their mum asking them for $20. Write a message to their mum saying, I've just changed my bank account and I've lost my card. Can you put some money in?
You can use audio AI and you don't have to, they can just ring the phone. Yep. And that voice, you know, you take a few sentences from that person speaking in a reel or in a talk, and then you pull the audio from that. I'm not telling you how to do it. And then you run it through 11 labs. And then you set the profile up and call it Manu or whatever.
That's Alvin Labs, Whānau Alvin.
Alvin, yep. And then you write whatever text you want to write. I could have Peter ring you, Po, and say, "Hey, bro, can you bring over a Big Mac and double fries and drop it off at Doug's place?" You know, you won't know. It'll sound so good.
Yeah. And that is a real big risk, right? I mean, because that is what scams will become increasingly made up of. It'll be AI personalized stuff. Won't be the shotgun approach of, you know, just calling automated phone call trees. It'll be here's a message to Poe, here's a phone call to Doug, here's another message to
the emails
Karaitiana.
of my family won you know, sovereignty $100 million check, and we need someone in New Zealand to you know, those email chain, those will go. They're going to be flash news scammers. They even, for all we know, all of us, Peter, you might be AI. We would, in a year's time, we wouldn't even know. So,
and so that key phrase. Sorry, you go, your.
So the technology is there already for deep fakes. I mean, it's easy to, as you say, use a video, and you know, how do we know that, you know, it's me here? It could be a deep fake video, and this is being increasingly deployed around the world with elections. And so I've already seen various groups in New Zealand talk about manipulating the Māori Party, for example, with the next election we've got. You know, spouting off mistruths and other things. So we really need to be careful already. And the thing is, now someone else asked a question about who's policing this. So in New Zealand, we have multiple organisations. We have the New Zealand Police, we have Department for Internal Affairs, we have NetSafe, the Office of the Prime Minister. There's the spy agencies. There's CERT, and it's all a matter of, you know, an individual needs to know which organisation to go to about which problem, because if you go to an organisation whose interest is not part of your complaint, you just get ignored. So that's another major problem in New Zealand that we have right now is cyber security for whānau, for individuals. I'd say be careful of video and audio fakes.
Kia ora. And sorry, just to drive it home again one more time. That advice there was having a key question that only you and someone else knows. It's not on the internet. It's not something that someone can find out about you. You agree on it, kānui ki te kānui, face to face. And when someone sends you, when your mum sends you that weird text or your son sends you that weird text, you ask, oh, what was I don't know, what was my workmate's favorite pair of shoes again? And they go, I don't know that. Then it's not them. But anyway, that's I think that's probably enough on the being AI aware kaupapa. I think I've probably only got two more pretty big partai that I wanted to throw out there. But we might finish up on those. So do either of you four have anything that we haven't talked about that you think it would be worth sharing while we're here and we're having this wānanga? Either from the Q&A or your own whakaaro that you wanted to put out there.
Maybe I could just jump in while people are thinking. So we've got there's a big separation in views about using AI to generate images and not generate images, right? And so there's we know that AI can take our IP, and we also know that AI training like Doug offers is providing valuable skills to 25,000 people around the world, or the number it is. So I think we need to actually have the conversation about what is good at AI, when do we consider our tikanga, and when does tikanga need to evolve? And so examples, when I was growing up, there was this big debate about using electric drills and electric equipment for bone carving and wood carving. There was one school that said, no, you should do it with a chisel and mallet and hammer. And there was another school that said, well, we're evolved, tikanga's changed. So I think as Māori, we need to start having these tikanga conversations about, how do we go forward? How do we ensure that our tikanga becomes part of AI? And I think they're quite important conversations to have. And I don't think we'll ever be able to have that conversation in an hour and a half online. And just quickly, there was a question, I can't find a question about labels, using labels for AI and Google, etc. So in my opinion, I really think that we need either a wānanga or a university or a PTE to actually create an AI course for Māori, so we can actually upskill Māori into these into all aspects of AI. Labeling is one. So labeling, basically, we know is biased, we know it's racist based on international research. We know that a lot of the labels that are applied to images and things are people working in basically sweat factories in Africa. They don't know, they don't care what they're labeling, right? So if we can upskill or create learning opportunities for Māori in AI, we could really hammer out some of these bias and racist issues that the world is experiencing. And I think New Zealand's small enough, we could probably pull that off. And finally, I mean, AI, the empowerment of
The AI bot is malfunctioning.
I think it's
It's just you, Poe.
Oh.
No, it was malfunctioning for me as well.
Yeah, sorry, we lost you for a bit there, Karaitiana. Lost kind of the second half of the labels called it all.
AI was attacking your connection.
I think I was trying to say that, the more we can upskill our people. Yeah, it sounds like it. I'm just.
I think there's definitely a corridor around that, possibly building framework and so forth. However, there are a lot of agents, a lot of organizations. I know of 13 that are building their own data sovereignty frameworks, and some of the best of the best. And they just don't settle. They still, no one settles on one. So, and labeling is definitely a part of it. So definitely a corridor and bring it all under one scope. Kind of like, that'll be an interesting one, bringing iwi together and upskilling. I guess for me, one would be what's the appetite, man? What is the appetite for that? Because no use building it if there's no appetite. We've got great ideas. Māori got ideas for days, but we've got to have the right ideas that lead to outcomes. I know that sounds like an overkill, but what's the appetite for that? What capability needs to be built? And then how do we build framework around that? And then that kind of like becomes a tikanga of that space, of the AI space. Because without any rules in place, we could be all over the place. Yeah, and when I look into things, I always look at what's the appetite, how hungry are people wanting to know, and even if they don't know, present some options. Won't go to AI to ask what those options are because we should already know what they are. And then and how do we address that? I don't think it's too hard because there's a lot of experts in the room. It wouldn't be too hard. We're not like we're starting from scratch. And there's a lot of us that are already involved with AI and in tech spaces. It's just pulling our tikanga out of that and bringing it into one space. Sav's got te reo sussed for us. Hey, Poe's got everything else. Piri, you've got we all got something to bring. I'm not putting my hand up saying let's form a committee because we've got too many committees that talk about committees. We're just saying there's opportunity. How and where when we do that. Karaitiana, you can lead on that. We'll follow we'll be your wingman. Yeah.
And wing woman.
And wing woman.
Elder. Oh.
Again, tautoko ngā kōrero. I think going back to Pātai Chief around, before we shift on to those two Pātai, I think a lot of this ends up coming down to a tikanga and a kawa conversation, kia oku nei whakaaro, where I think that a lot of the conversations that we're having now is because of a lack of understanding of tikanga in this space. We find ourselves occupying capacity in the kawa space because it's kind of easier. We need a foundation, we need a policy, we need X, Y, and Z as opposed to having the proper wānanga around what is Māori's perspective around artificial intelligence. You go to every organization and ask them what does Māori data sovereignty mean to them, you're going to get 100 different definitions of Māori data sovereignty. And I think that's when it comes back to the strength of Te Ao Māori is through our uniformity, through those collective, unique whakaaro that we bring to the table. So that's where, when I'm thinking about a lot of the kōrero that we've had here, again, what is the tikanga that we collectively have or that we collectively sign up to when we're thinking about the usage of Gen AI, not only in a Toi Māori space, but just in Te Ao Māori. And then that's when we can start being a little bit more strategic, for a lack of a better way of looking at it, in terms of where we put our efforts, whether it is legislation, whether it's a policy, whether it's going home and sitting on boards and being an AI expert in those different spaces. So if I was to summarize that kōrero, I think we can kind of get to a point where we're spending too much time probably later down the stage as opposed to kind of ensuring our foundations are strong. Heoi anō he paku whakaaro anake.
Kia ora. Tav. He hau whakaaro.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to all of that. I think a really cool way to do things, and I know there's like complete opposite than bringing everyone together, but I mean, even if you ask every single iwi or every single person, everyone's going to have different whakaaro, and everyone's going to have a different specialization, and everyone's going to, and you kind of block to people who have similar interests, and then you kind of build these like natural, not committees, but like natural kind of subgroups that, you're all kind of on that same page and working towards a similar thing. I guess like with the huge following that you've built up, Doug, around your Marae AI, there's like one example. And I think even just little things that we can do in terms of, I heard some people talking about running AI workshops in local libraries, like giving up an hour of our time every like month or every couple of months. If a bunch of us started doing that, like, literally just teaching, for example, how to use ChatGPT to do this one task. I think like kind of starting back at the grassroots level, because there's, as you said, there's committees talking about committees to talk about committees. So, back to that kind of grassroots upwards, and then big stuff will happen if we start small, I reckon. that's just oku nei whakaaro.
Kia ora. Just on that note, mi atu kia koe Pou. So Pou is going to come and hold space here at Te Wānanga o Raukawa for 1 day a week for a month to for that purpose, to just have whānau come in, have a tutu, learn about AI in a safe space with someone who knows about what he's doing. So yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, well, like it's about that thing that we're always good at, right? Which is, you know, when we have that mātauranga, when we have something worth sharing, just making the space to do that sharing. Yeah. Any other whakaaro on that? That could pop up. Ka pai. Well, the two kind of pātai that I wanted us to wrap up on are pretty, you know, kind of high level kōrero, but if we think about our two two possible futures that we kind of head down, right, and it won't be nearly this binary, but if you think about the next 2 to 5 years and then the next 10 years, what does the world look like if we as Māori don't contribute, don't shape the future of AI and the growth of AI, and then in that same sort of time frame, 2 to 5 years, and then 10 years, what might it look like if we do exert some control over the shape of AI and how it grows over that time period? And you know, this is just wānanga, it's just throwing whakaaro out there, but what might those futures look like, do we reckon? Oh, they're boring. Okay.
No, it's actually quite easy. I don't want to make it so easy, but if we get involved and we shape it, you won't have 4 moko car wires across the face of a wahine when you generate it. And if you do get involved, it'll be sitting where it needs to be sitting. I'm sorry, but that's, you know, that's an easy answer, you know. But obviously, from an academic perspective, if we don't get involved, the world will teach our mokopuna what Māori is. That's all I've got. The world will teach our mokopuna what they think Māori is.
Kia ora. Oh,
It's just to add on to that kōrero from Doug. Mike Jonathan, the director of Ka Whawhai Tonu. If you haven't seen the film, highly regard that you go see the film, whānau mā. But a big kōrero at a recent wānanga that I was privileged to be at, he talked about story sovereignty. And so I think in the capacity of us not doing anything, we forego our rights as authors in terms of the narrative that is Māori. I'll say that again. We forego the authorship of the narrative that is Māori. And so the big thing that I took away from him was the reason why he wanted to create a Māori-based movie, although when he went through the processes to get it to the big screen, there were a lot of whānau that were actually wanting him to change his movie. One of the particular points that I recall from his movie was the wahine in Ka Whawhai Tonu were a bit too on the masculine side. They were kind of too scary. That's probably me mincing some of his words, but that was the advice that he got, because based on I guess, stories that we know of land wars, they were kind of seen as delicate and must protect them and everything else. But based off the narrative that he was wanting to perpetuate out to the world was, nah, you think our tāne Māori are scary, you should see some of these wahine, they're way scarier. So in that kind of instances, if we don't do anything, someone else is going to write the narrative for Māori. And funny enough, well, funny to me, funny to probably not a lot of people, but I was talking to someone around Police 10-7, and as a result of not having any Māori at the board who are actually navigating the narrative of that TV show, what you saw was actually just the perpetual nature of this bias that we see that Māori Pacifica are no ones. So if we don't do anything, that's what's going to continue to happen. The rhetorics that are happening across public, private, and everything else will just continue to happen, probably at even more of a rapid pace. To flip that whakaaro and turn it into a bit more of a positive one, as Doug was talking about, I kind of operate in this context of what type of tipuna will I be remembered as? And so that's an easy question. The harder part is kind of how do I start living up to that aspiration? And so when we think about, again, what will be the narrative that I will continue to have in this whakapapa that is called this parore line, what narrative will I continue to contribute to my hapu, te kuihi, up north? What authorship will I have in the journey and the narrative of Ngāti Whātua? So having that kind of perspective of the importance of our actions, the importance of our words when we are interacting with elements such as AI. So coming back to your partai around what does the next 5 to 10 years look like, I see it as my next, outside of my fiance and also my son, but adding in another member to our whānau that no doubts continue to kind of push and allows greater utility as a result of the use of it. So yeah, I see Māori using it, thriving, being able to use it commercially, to reconnect with whakapapa and everything else. And if anything, kind of start, in the absence of being able to take complete control or complete sovereignty of our narrative, at least bringing it back to a balance that it is 50-50. So yeah, tōku ne whakaaro.
Kia ora. Kia ora, Zav.
Kia ora. He tautoko i ngā kōrero katoa, especially tō kōrero pou. Yeah, he wahine toa i ngā wahine katoa, even though I wasn't back in that day, but yeah. Tonu hoki. Ko tērā taku kōrero, I forgot the pātai. Tōku brain just got stuck on that. Go watch the movie, e whama.
What he ao whakaaro iho on those two possibilities of our futures. If we don't shape AI as it continues to evolve, what does the next 2 to 5 years look like, and then maybe the next 10 years, and then if we do get involved and shape it, what's the opposite look like?
Yeah, he pātai tino nui tērā. I mean, if we go down the path of continuing to shape it and working with it, like for example, our vision that me and Dad have for Kahu Code is to have a voice assistant, something like Alexa or like a chat GPT that you can talk to in your home. It speaks te reo Māori, you can speak te reo to it, not for commercial reasons whatsoever, but more in my dad's words to leave a legacy. And I think that, like, as Poe has said, it's kind of like, what are we doing for the next generation? And if we don't do anything, well, then they're going to be like, well, you didn't do anything. Why would we do anything? And then it's like, you know, and then it's just going to go all backwards again. And we've been kind of working on all of this stuff, not for nothing, but I think with any technology, a technology was mentioned before, but even like 3G, 4G, 5G, for example, you always see people really scared, and then they're kind of interested, and then they're not too sure, and then it's a big surge, and then it's just normalized. So if we can kind of continue that pattern with AI, I think definitely need to get more hands-on with people and just show them what it is, because I think we're still talking about it a lot, but still a lot of people maybe aren't sure of even what to do, like just practical things that they could use it for.
Well,
yeah,
we need to debunk that myth, right? Hey, the narrative out there right now is AI is taking all the jobs.
Yeah,
or AI is going to take the jobs. So, you know, and those sort of narratives turn people off. Why would I want to learn about something that's going to take my job?
Yeah.
So that's kind of one of the big questions when students come on board, you know, why would I want to learn about AI? And then I talk about an enabling capability for your whānau where you can earn where there is none, you know, and that goes to your original kōrero pou, you know, I mean, which is not this kōrero, but, you know, there's an enablement for e-commerce, there's an enablement for marketing, there's an enablement for all this other stuff, big words for people that don't understand, but you wouldn't use those words in that context because, you know, it comes back to the appetite to bring them in, to have that kōrero, to change the narrative around the myth that AI is bad. And isn't it funny that AI's here, and we sitting in this hui know that it's an enabler, but it's the first thing that got banned across all sectors. As if it had more bans across it than any other piece of framework, any other piece of document. We're talking health, education, justice, right across. Banned. Yet, we sit here and we think, how could it be so bad? Because our focus is about something that can support our whānau, our mokopuna, everybody as an enabling capability. So yeah, debunking that myth that it is bad, and particularly it's taking the jobs, and you listen to AI companies, it's actually creating jobs, more jobs that we don't even know exist. Who ever thought that a job would be a prompt engineer? We've been listening to prompts our whole life from our nannies. Get up, get out of bed, get to school, go to work, get a job, get married, have some kids, whatever. Those are prompts. Those are as simple as how bots react. Now there's jobs out there called prompt engineering, paying astronomical money, and we didn't know what that was. We didn't know those jobs were coming. So there's a workforce that's undiscovered yet to come. So I think debunking the myth around that would help secure an appetite for people to want to come to learn, particularly our people, because we're tutu, ho tutu. We want to have a play, and we've all had a play. And when you go and tell someone, hey, come and learn about AI, rubbish, stink, so it's like you said, small steps, yeah. Yeah.
Zab, did you have anything else you wanted to throw in that one? Dr. Karaitiana?
Yeah, I'm gonna turn my camera off while I talk because I got some bandwidth issues. So I can guarantee you it is me. You can ask me anything. So as I said at the beginning of the kōrero, we're at the crossroads. If we ignore AI, we're going to keep on being. We're going to be more colonized than we are now. Every negative statistic about Māori will be double, triple that. So you talk about in the next 10 years. So I think it's important to point out that we don't have true artificial intelligence yet. We're still at the generative AI. We're in the second stage of AI. When we get real AI, I think, Māori, we need to have already been at the table, planning, making sure we've sorted out our own future. A lot of Māori are too scared of AI, but I mean, we need to think that Captain Cook's diaries, he commented how innovative Māori were, how quick we were to learn, how we wanted to learn all these new tools and new resources. And I think maybe colonization's made us think that we're dumb and that we're not like that, but we are. So we need to keep on encouraging more Māori into AI, because no one's stopping us right now. It's only us that's stopping us from getting ahead. We can be world leaders in the next few years. We can have, more educated Māori. We can contribute to the economy more than we do now. There's just unlimited potential there, and so I think that's the real benefit. And just again, if we don't, we'll keep on going backwards. So kia ora.
Kia ora. Oh, that feels like a pretty important note to kind of wrap up tonight on, I think. Unless anyone has any other whakaaro they think can beat, if we ignore AI, we're going to be more colonized than we were or than we already are, and we could be world leaders in the next few years if we don't. Kapai. I think I did want to ask one more partai, but and it was going to be around next steps that our whānau might take to go about learning more, or to have a tutu if they've been thinking about it but haven't yet made that first step. But I think instead of doing that, I might send out some resources to the people who registered to take part in this wānanga. And is my camera going real AI glitchy? Maybe it's not really. Maybe it's not really me here.
Oh, we're
Holy moly! No,
your camera's being colonized.
You know too much. You know too much.
yeah. You could be worldly. No, but I just wanted to to send a massive mihi to you guys, to you for sharing your mātauranga, sharing this kōrero tonight. To everybody who's dialed in to have a listen, because it is an important kōrero. I think it is as important as what you were just saying, Karaitiana. AI has the potential to colonize us even more than we have been if we don't take control over it and shape it the way we should. Maybe I'll turn off that background because it's starting to freak me out. Let's see if that makes a difference. No, still not really here. Ka pai. So he mihi nui, he mihi mai o ha kia koutou. You've done a massive job of helping me learn and understand a whole bunch. I know for our whānau who've been listening as well. Yeah, see, it's not me. But I will put my bank account details at the end of this chat, and I just need you to deposit some money because I've lost my FPOS card. Jokes. But yeah, he mihi mai o ha, he mihi nui, he mihi aroha. And like I said, we'll send out some resources on steps that we could take around learning more. Man, my camera's going bananas. So I might turn off my camera as I close us off with a karakia. And yeah, thank you all for dialing in. Thank you for hopefully you have an opportunity to share some of this kōrero with people around you who are interested in AI, who have had maybe some of those misapprehensions or those concerns or those worries. And hopefully you've taken something from this kōrero that you can share with them to, like Doug said, help put our people back up on that on the top of that wave of that tsunami as it carries our people forward, as it carries the rest of the world forward, because otherwise we will be behind everybody else. Ka pai. Yeah. Well, me karakia tātou. Unuhia rā ko te pūtake o ngā kōrero o te wānanga. Unuhia rā ko te hautapu o ngā āraki. Kau whatatea ko tāne te waiora, ki runga ki tēnei taura, ki runga ki tēnei tauira. Kia koe te matapunenga, mai angi te matapū iho iho, whano, hara mai te toki, haumi e, hui e, tai ki e. I might see if I can come back. Maybe I just needed to whakawātea with that karakia. No, camera's not working now. All right, well, e hoa mā, kia pai te pō. Have a good night, and thank you for joining us. Yeah. Ka kite.
Hei kona.
Ka kite.